Welcome to the Kaiser Report. I'm Max Kaiser. Hey, you there in Liverpool. Thanks so much for this Max graffiti you can now see on your screen. I asked people around the world to put Max graffiti up in your city. Liverpool, thank you. This has got to be 5 or 6 cities now around the world that have huge Max portrait graffiti. Yes! Okay, now, the Lilliputians, let's talk about them. They looked upon fraud as a greater crime than theft. For, with care and vigilance, one could protect your property from theft. But where fraud is permitted or conceived or connived or hath no law to punish, the honest dealer is always undone, and the knave gets the advantage. Just look at America and or the UK, and you will see the Lilliputians had a point, for the knaves do indeed have all the advantage. Doth thou'st agreeth with me, O knave whisperer, Stacey Herbert?
Well, indeed, I do believe there are many knaves that rule the world, especially here in the UK and in the US. And there is no knave more knave-like than Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan. And
Jamie Dimon of Jamie, he's a gift that keeps on giving, like herpes or AIDS or something. He's financial herpes. Wherever he goes, people are infected with his banking virus.
Well, he's also, I would say, a Lilliputian and a Big Endian. So we've got them all rolled up into one. McCain pressures justice to hold JP Morgan executives accountable. As we know, JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon went to meet with Eric Holder in person on the 26th of September. And in response, Senator McCain sent this letter. He said, will you seek to hold any top officer, director, or key employees within JP Morgan personally accountable for the wrongdoing? McCain of Arizona wrote in a letter today to Attorney General Eric Holder. McCain, the ranking Republican on the Senate subcommittee that probed JP Morgan's record trading loss last year, criticized Holder's September 26 meeting with Chief Executive Officer Jamie Dimon, calling it highly unusual. Now, the meeting was regarding the alleged $11 billion fine that he's going to pay on behalf of JP Morgan for mortgage fraud.
Well, kudos to John McCain. I take back all those nasty things I said about him for warmongering and always talking about bombing Iran. I would tweet often and saying, "Dear Vietnam, please take John McCain back and put him back into the prisoner of war camp," because he seems to like that sort of thing. But I take that all back now, and he seems to be standing up to the banksters and writing a letter to Eric Holder. Unfortunately, Eric Holder, like Gary Gensler of the CFTC or the SEC or these other regulators, are in the pocket of Jamie Dimon, so I'm afraid that will end up for naught.
But as the Lilliputians said, you know, it was fraud that was the bigger danger to your economy, because it drives out the good business person, the person trying to do an honest living. Whereas if the knave is able to commit fraud after fraud after fraud after fraud after fraud after fraud, and then go to the Justice Department for a personal meeting, Lord knows it could have been a Bandar Blair sort of situation. Was he threatening him? Who knows what happened or transpired in that meeting? Now, John McCain said, your personal meeting with the CEO of the corporate target of a major criminal investigation at the request of the CEO while negotiations on a global settlement agreement are pending is highly unusual, and under the circumstances that meeting occurred gives rise to concern.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the criminogenic nature of business in America, as William K. Black would describe it, former prosecutor who put a lot of bankers in jail after the savings and loan crisis. This has become the day-to-day grist of the American economy. And the CNBC folks, of course, they are in denial. They don't think Jamie Dimon has committed massive crimes and committed massive fraud, or Lloyd Blankfein over there at Goldman Sachs. But of course they have. It's been documented. They've paid plenty of fines for it. I mean, had there not been laws changed after the savings and loan crisis decriminalizing the fraud that Jamie Dimon's involved with today, he, like the bankers of that era, would be in jail. Remember, one of the fallouts from the S&L crisis was bankers changed the law to make the crimes of the S&L era legal. They decriminalized Ponzi schemes and they decriminalized banking terrorism. Is now a perfectly acceptable way to make money in America now. And Dimon, under those set of laws, would be sitting right next to Bernie Madoff. But lo and behold, Eric Holder and the whole Washington establishment, who takes money from the extortionists on Wall Street, changed the law to make criminal behavior that was once worthy of a prison sentence and maybe a hanging. Now it's okay.
Well, first of all, I have redubbed Ponzi scheme. It's now called an Osborne scheme in the world of financial Twitterists.
So the Osborne scheme. And I think we should also note for people exactly where we're getting this reference to Lilliputians. Are we talking about Gulliver's Travels here?
Yes, Jonathan Swift, 1726.
Those Lilliputians.
Those Lilliputians.
Okay. They seem to be quite wise for Lilliputians.
Well, now, okay, we're talking about a criminogenic environment where fraud and knaves thrive. So how does that happen? How does it happen aside from just the elite circles? How do the masses of the population accept that only small-time crooks, the guys rioting here in the UK a few summers ago, why is it that we all accept that they should be sent to prison for months on end, whereas Jamie Dimon should be able to go down to the Department of Justice and meet with the Attorney General of the United States and decide whether or not he should be fined for anything or face any punishment? Well, part of it is the media and the propaganda. And that takes us to this headline, the JP Morgan apologists of CNBC. So I'm going to show you this little clip, and it's Maria Bartiromo of CNBC, and she questions Alex Perrine of Huffington Post.
So should we talk about the financial strength of JP Morgan at this point? I mean, even with all of these losses, the company continues to churn out, tens of billions of dollars in earnings and hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. How do you criticize that?
I think a lot of their earnings and revenue we've seen have come from really shady dealings that they've been.
Oh, come on.
They have.
All right. Name three shady dealings.
Well, it's a mentality of entitlement. It's a plantation mentality. And it's funny how politics in America is now breaking along racial lines. Here you have Jamie Dimon from the Big House visiting Eric Holder down there in the field doing the field work. And he's lecturing him about his place. And Eric Holder needs to find his place on the plantation. And Barack Obama needs to find his place on Jamie Dimon's plantation. And Maria Bartiromo is like one of those Southern belles. Atlanta's burning. Oh, what should I do?
So going back to the story about Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, and she had asked Alex Perrine, what have they done wrong? They're making profits. What crimes have they committed? What have they done that's wrong? So I'll name three. She said, name three of them. Well, Jefferson County, Alabama, where two JP Morgan bankers paid bribes to public officials in Jefferson County, Alabama. The public officials are now in jail. JP Morgan executives not in jail. They paid a fine for the bogus credit default swaps attached to this bond.
That's two? Number two? That's number one.
That's just
number
still
one.
Number two, energy market rigging in California. And number three, LIBOR rigging. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the government-backed agencies, are now suing Jamie Dimon's JP Morgan because of rigging global interest rates on the $300+ trillion market.
No, that's just three. There's LIBOR, there's AIG, there's Madoff. All Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan all had a hand in it. There's the violation of minimum capital requirements. They break 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's regulatory capture. The list goes on and on and on. He's got a rap sheet longer than Tony Soprano. But again, he's white. So therefore, in today's America, that means he's right.
Well, Eric Holder is very black, and I think he is allowed to get away with crimes. I don't think it's a matter of any sort of race. I think
that's right. But he got a lecture too, didn't he? Because he was getting out of his place. So they had to send Jamie Dimon, the big white father from Wall Street, to tell Eric Holder, get in your place. Okay, this is what's going on.
So we
That's what's going on.
We have many metaphors in this episode, but we're going to go.
You started it with the Lilliputians, okay? Who would have put a Lilliputian in the teleprompter? I don't know. There it was. Here we are now.
There you have it. Max just reads the teleprompter. I write the words.
Nobody doubts that.
So the other point made here was that profits, they wash away all sins. Well, Felix Salmon in Reuters says, besides, banks shouldn't be obscenely profitable. They're intermediaries. And in an efficient economy, their profits should be quite easily competed away. When bank profits are high, that's a sign that the bank in question is extracting rents from the economy rather than helping it to grow. So here we have it, a situation where, as you said in the top of the show, the Lilliputians thought that fraud was bad because it allows the knaves to flourish. And here we have the prime example that profits are rising in the banking sector because the knaves are allowed to scoop and take and steal and defraud and steal and take and defraud.
Well, I'm sticking with my plantation metaphor because to justify slavery in the South was this notion that it's highly profitable. It's profitable, Jamie Dimon says, with his fraud that he commits daily, so therefore it's righteous. And Maria Martirova Balatashnaco, baloney face, whatever her name is, she is a proponent of this idea of noblesse oblige, essentially, that Jamie Dimon is an aristocrat, he knows what's best for America, he knows what's best for the world, just give him the benefit of the doubt, he's above the law, if you don't like it, then get down there and start picking cotton.
So, and then finally on this Felix Salmon piece, he also mentions that she wipes away all, the fact that he was going down there to meet with Eric Holder was regarding the mortgage fraud that has destroyed the mortgage market in America. Almost 100% of all mortgages written now are backed by the U.S. government because there is no private sector. So he says the country was seriously damaged by J.P. Morgan's lies and misrepresentations about its mortgages, much more than it would be damaged if the share price went down instead of up. And the public has every reason to want the individuals running J.P. Morgan to be held accountable when it gets into serious regulatory trouble over and over again.
Right, and remember that when the crisis hit in 2008 and the bank's profits were completely obliterated because they were over-leveraged and made horrible bets, then this notion that, well, they were making money, they're righteous, so to restore this righteousness, we're going to give them a huge multi-trillion-dollar bailout to restore this thing called market fundamentalism, the ideology of profits over people, the ideology of profits over humanity, which is exactly the same thinking that motivates people to strap on suicide bombs and go into cafes and blow themselves up. Here, Jamie Dimon is strapping on debt, and he's a suicide banker, and Maria Bartiromo is justifying market fundamentalism and market terrorism. Thanks, Maria. Great job. Okay, Stacey Huber, thanks so much for being on the Kaiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
Stay tuned for the second half, a whole lot more. Welcome back to the Kaiser Report. I'm Max Kaiser. Time now to turn to Mark Armstrong of publicbanking.org. Mark, welcome to the Kaiser Report.
Hey, Max. Good to be here.
All right, Mark Armstrong, let's talk first about the banking system as we currently know it. First, the FDIC, it protects our deposits, right?
It is insurance for protecting our deposits, but the insurance fund is only about $27 billion. Deposits are way over $1 trillion. So in light of the derivatives bubble, which goes up to about 10 plus trillion just for at risk, just for B of A and Chase, there could be a real problem.
All right, we'll get to derivatives in a second, but let's just revisit those numbers for a second. You're saying there's a roughly $1 trillion on deposit, and the FDIC fund has how much in there?
About 27 billion.
Okay, when we look at situations like what we saw recently in Cyprus, where they had a bail-in, here you have a situation where deposits from people with money at the bank was basically confiscated by the government.
Right.
And so when you describe a situation where the FDIC has a minuscule amount of funds available in case of some kind of meltdown in the financial system, which is almost 100% guaranteed to happen in the relatively soon basis, are we saying therefore the U.S. would be a prime candidate for a bail-in type situation?
Right, because according to Dodd-Frank, we're not allowed to have taxpayers bail out the banks. So when they go bankrupt, what are they going to do? They're not treated with the same rules that a normal business has, where when a bank goes bankrupt, assets are dispersed. They get to seize deposits and turn depositors into shareholders, and then continue business.
Okay, so there's another big point here, which you cover over there at publicbanking.org, along with Alan Brown, who's a big fan of our friend, I should say, of our show. Does a depositor own his or her deposit?
No, they don't.
So explain that exactly. If I give the money to HSBC or Citibank or some big bank, and I put my money in the bank, don't I own that money?
No, you become a creditor of that bank. The money is owned by the bank, and that they treat that as a liability. They owe that money back to you.
Has this always been the case?
Yes.
And is there anyone out there trying to reform this other than you? Because you have the obvious conflict of interest. If if things go bad, the bank simply says, well, these are our deposits to begin with, and you got to get in line, and you got to get in line behind a massive number of creditors.
Right. Well, I think 2008 was a big wake-up call for the general public in America and elsewhere, and people are realizing that the banking system has all sorts of fraud baked into it, and we've been told one thing, but the reality is another.
So there's fraud.